This episode is sponsored by Zenro Clothing Co. Pick up your tees and or accessories at zenroclothingco.com and be sure to use offer code Socrates at checkout for 20% off select items. Also, if you're not into spending the money, just check out the Zenrail radio playlist. zenrailclothingco.com, music for your everyday. This episode also sponsored by The Portian Bakery. If you're located in the Portian area of Scarborough, Toronto, be sure to check out The Portian Bakery, say what's up to Arville, and pick up a donut or two. Baked daily, crafted with love. This episode also sponsored by Podbean. Podbean is the podcasting platform of choice. It's the one that me and Vish use, and is great, you know, if you're looking to start that DIY podcast yourself. Definitely check out Podbean. Use the link podbean.com/SocraticGamers and gain 1 month of unlimited podcasting for free. Test it out, build that content. Anyone can podcast, right, Vish?
Yep.
Start a podcast and get your ideas out there. All right, enjoy the episode. All right, so how do you want to start this one, Vish? You want to do The Darkness, or you want to start with Imitation Game?
Well, we can see what led to what, right? So maybe Imitation Game. We'll start with something fun.
Okay, yeah, true. All right. We'll okay. So we first checked out. It's gonna be like a pretty movie related episode, I suppose, because we watched like a bunch of movies this week and like. Anyways, so Imitation Game. Basically, you want to give the rundown of what Imitation Game is?
It's about Alan Turing.
Mm-hmm. And I remember when you first talked about it, I was like Turing test, because I only knew him through AI.
Right.
But keep going, yeah.
So it was in the war, right? Yeah, wartime, World War II, trying to figure out a way to solve the enigma. And Alan Turing, the mathematician. And
then the enigma is like a machine that would decode cryptic messages. So like
the Germans were using.
Yeah, that the Germans were using to pass messages back and forth to one another, and the machine was used to decode those encryptions. Yeah.
But you need to know the code in order to actually decrypt the message.
Yeah,
even if you have the machine.
So even though they had them, so basically the British found the machine, and then they were hiring like a bunch of geniuses to figure out how to crack the code.
Yeah.
And they only had like, what was it, from midnight?
Well, 24 hours, basically 24 hours. So every midnight,
right.
The code would change, and they had to scrap whatever you've done and start again.
Right. And what they ended up figuring out, like Alan Turing, he created basically what was the first computer, and it was able to when they figured out. Well,
the thing was like this, right? The thing that needed why that was happening was because, well, in order to break the code, it's like, okay, how many? It's millions of
potential solutions.
Yeah. Like you have to do so many calculations or whatnot to get to the actual phrase, whatever they're using, but it's just not enough time in a day to do that.
Yeah, because they said it would take like 100 years to come up with, to solve each potential outcome.
Yeah, and then again, you have to do it again. If you didn't get it, you have to do it again from the beginning.
Yeah, so they're trying to do it by
hand. It's actually
hand.
not even like, I mean, it's 24 hours when they switch the code. Actually, it's not even 24 hours they got, because like the first message comes in at 6 a.m.
Right,
so it's like really 18 hours or something like that.
Yeah,
to work on this.
And they were trying to do it by hand in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he came up with his machine, which if you punched in the code plus the coded message, it would decrypt it for you.
Yeah, it would run so many iterations at once, right?
Yeah.
Trying to solve it,
like mathematical calculations.
Yeah.
That they were trying to do by hand. Yeah. So basically, that's the origins of the computer, but that's not the primary focus of the movie.
No, primary focus was
that was just like the backdrop.
That was the backdrop. Yeah.
So it was crazy, like when you look at how far we've come in society, you don't realize, well, how far we've come, right? Like we take everything we do for granted, but the main message of the movie was just because he was gay, it ruined his entire life.
Yeah. Right.
So even though he was this wartime hero, although it wasn't declassified until 50 years later after the war.
Right.
So what ends up happening during the movie is they end up finding the code, and then they break it. So they actually knew everything the Germans were doing every single day, and they didn't want to let on. So they had to, instead of stopping all of the attacks, they had to choose which one would have the least casualties, and then everyone else would die.
I don't know if it was necessarily I mean, overall least casualty, but it was like statistically picked.
Yeah.
Which ones to win, which ones we can lose,
Right.
so that they also don't give away that they've figured out.
Because if you stop every single one, then they're like, oh, they know our code. We're just gonna create a whole new enigma. And they have to start from scratch.
Right.
So, yeah, but because of that, it was less of a movie. Well, there's so many concepts that were being discussed here, but like, I suppose the prominent thing that I brought up was him being gay, and that ruined his entire life. So even though he was this genius, came up with the Turing machine, because he was homosexual and they put it out there, he was tried for indecency under British law.
Yeah, it was illegal.
So I totally get now why a gay pride parade is such a big thing, because so many, but again, it's like you take so many things for granted from your own perspective unless you dig deeper into history, right? That's why history is so important. But what was confusing to me is like during the Roman time, being gay was totally normal. Like even I was listening to this history podcast and they were saying like I think it was in Japan maybe or Rome. It was one of the two. They were saying that like marriage is reserved for the woman and passion is reserved for the man.
Okay.
So like if you wanted a passionate love, you would seek out a male, and then if you wanted to like have a family, you would seek out a female, because females were less superior to males at the time.
Yeah.
So like it was kind of a burden to have a wife, because you're like, oh, she's like less than me, but I need one to like carry on my family, et cetera, et cetera. So take care of the home, whatever.
Yeah.
But like now we hit this point, not now, but like then World War II time, it was like it became illegal to be gay. So when did that happen? You know,
no, that
like,
happened way before. These are religious
yeah.
laws that was
totally, totally. We'll get into that after for 12 Years a Slave, because that actually, well, I'll allude to it now, but essentially it was the Abrahamic religions that went around converting people and like using their selected verses to pass on what they wanted.
Right.
So it's like, well, the Bible says you can't sleep with a male, so it's like that's why. Well, actually, that is where it switched. Oh wow, how illuminating!
Yeah,
that's very true. Because in the Roman time, they were pagans. They believed in like the Greek gods. The Greek gods turned into the Roman gods, but they're the exact same gods.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't until the Christian Crusades when that ideology started taking over, and they started using the book, the holy book,
right, to
like do their opinion, which is crazy to think about. You're like, it's one of the biggest. It is actually, if you calculate the Abrahamic religions, like Jews, Christians, and Muslims, they're the top in the religious sphere. Remember we checked that out, like what is the most dominant religion in the world, and it was like,
well, not Jews though.
No, but they're people of the book, like they're Abrahamic.
Okay.
So I'm lumping them together.
Right.
But in that thing, it was like Muslims were number one, right?
No, Christianity.
Whatever. So 1 and 2. So okay, and then what was the next one? Like Hinduism, maybe. Yeah. So okay, so the first 2 spots are taken by the people of the book.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that is why we think the way we do in this world now. Because it was, if you look at like Spain, right? How did Spain pass on its like colonialism?
Yeah.
Or like Britain colonialism? It was through the Bible. You know, even in that movie Silence, remember, like they went to Japan to convert everyone.
Yeah.
Again, Christianity.
Right, but
crazy.
But it's in the message, right? The message is they're doing it out of love in their perspective, because it says that if you don't believe, you go to hell. So they don't want people to go to hell. So
in order to totally, it is the only religion that is really focused on like eternal life and savior from damnation.
Yeah.
Right, it's the only religion. Remember we were talking about the closest one would be the Greek religion, because of like they go to Hades or whatever. But you said everyone goes there. So like, oh yeah, like there's no heaven in there. Like Olympus is heaven to them, but that's reserved for the gods, not for humans, right? So the actual only religion that saves you, maybe that's where they got it too. They're like, oh, Hades, all humans go there, but if you listen to God, you won't have to go to Hades.
Yeah, so it must have switched somewhere because that story didn't make sense to a lot of people.
Actually, it switched when Emperor Constantine, because at the time Christianity was like such a low religion. It was paganism, right? But paganism is essentially non-Christian. That's what it means. Like it's not like a like one sect with different gods or anything. It's like a term.
Yeah, no, it's not. A pagan is just is an overall term that's not Christian, right?
Yeah, so it's
they can have their own beliefs.
Yeah, so like that's why you can have like what's it called? Greeks are considered pagan. The Norse are considered pagan. You know what I mean? It's like it's pretty intense. Like when you think about it, that's when this all started, and this leads us into Alan Turing, because like since it was in the Bible, considered indecency, and Britain built its laws off of the Bible.
Yeah.
Boom. There we go.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do this anymore. You know?
Yeah.
And in doing that, you ruined a genius's life. Because remember, at the end of the movie, they were like, he had two options: either go to jail or get hormonal treatment.
Drugs, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And it was like, okay, so he chose the hormonal drugs, but then one of his friends met him again, and she's like, oh, you're not the same person. You know, he was like shaking, he couldn't do any puzzles, and like he killed himself at 40.
Yeah.
But remember, he cried. So powerful. That one scene where he cried and he's like, I don't want to be alone. And like he named the first computer, the Turing machine, Christopher, which is the name of his childhood love.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's so intense. Like he fell in love as a child, then the one he fell in love with died.
Yeah. And
then he grew up lonely. You know,
it's because it was so shunned upon. It's like even to find people of the same. It's like it's not.
Yeah.
Like it's not an easy thing, because it's a hidden, like, you know what I mean. Like it's you're living alone. Yeah. You're really living alone.
And he even got the wife, right? But he's like, I can't actually. Like he told her that he was gay, and she's like, that's fine. You know, but like it didn't work out because for a myriad of reasons. But yeah, and then he was just looking at the people in the bar. Like that's how he got caught. Like he found they essentially thought he was a spy.
Yeah.
So they were like investigating him, and then they found out that he was hiring this person to like sleep with him or whatever. Yeah. Mind blow. And the craziest part of it is because it was so top secret, he couldn't tell them, although he did during the interrogation.
Right, yeah.
He couldn't tell them what happened, like why, because they're like, he must be a spy because we can't find anything in his history relating to the war, but he was in the war, and like
it's all classified.
Yeah, and then somebody like broke into his house, and then he was like telling them like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. So they're like, all this like weirdness made them believe he was a spy. Yeah. I'm just like baffled by how far we've come in that light alone, because like when I would see it, like it seems so normal, you know. I guess even when we were in high school, it wasn't too normal. I knew a few gay people who were like fully open, but still, it wasn't like everyone who was actually gay was like totally open.
Or it is free to be who they want to be, right? Like it's, some people felt shunned, like it's not
by their families and stuff. I'm sure. Like, and then now it's like we hit this point where it's more common to be gay, and like now we have like different versions, like what's like non-binary, and like we're really like separating it all and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like, wow, this would have been crimes back in the day.
Not that long ago, too.
And what was that? That was World War II. So that was 60 years ago.
Yeah, but it was World War II. But they didn't remove that law for a longer time after, right?
Yeah, true. But this movie is like, yeah. When did they even? Actually, I saw I think it was Venezuela. They finally allowed abortion. So like that was illegal for so long.
It's still illegal in a lot of other places.
Yeah. So, but you see what I'm saying? It's like I saw this one video on anime recently, and they were saying how, like in the anime scene, how like this sage, it was Naruto, and like his Jiraiya was saying that he believes one day humans will learn about acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll have full acceptance, and that's when we'll have not peace but like tolerance for everyone, you know. And I feel like we are probably hitting that zone now.
Even tolerance, I don't know what does that really mean. Like maybe more like respect for each other versus tolerance
Okay,
is
yeah.
a much more of a Western thinking. Also, it's like
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's like I don't like you, but I'll
I'll
tolerate,
tolerate
you.
you. Yeah, that
True,
seems
true,
kind
true.
of weird
True.
too.
Okay, I'll go with
Because I heard
respect.
that recently. I was listening to somebody and they were talking about like how Hinduism, there's no such thing as like tolerance. It's like yeah, we'll just
We respect that
yeah,
you
we
have a
respect
different
you.
belief.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
and
I
we'll
like that.
keep it together with everything else. It's like
I'm changing my thing. We don't need tolerance. We need respect. Yeah. Because, but I mean, because I was thinking about tolerance before, because there's some people you can't change.
no, I know.
So it's like, okay,
right.
just at least tolerate
Right.
them. You know?
In that sense, sure, but
And
it's
then the
like
next step would be
yeah,
respecting it.
sure. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I see there's like a very thin line between tolerance and respect.
Yeah.
That's a young Yoda quote right there. There's a thin line between tolerance and respect. Because it's true. It's like they're both equaling the same
Right,
thing.
right.
Do whatever you want.
Yeah, because I was thinking the same way, but that's because I was born in the Western
Right.
hemisphere, right? So this is how we were brought up thinking, like to
Yeah.
tolerate
Others, yeah.
others,
But it's like, no,
it's more
respect
about
them. It's
respect.
like, you can do whatever you want,
Yeah.
but as long as you respect me to do whatever I want
Yeah.
as well. But then it brings up the question of like, can you respect me if I think it should be like respect. So, well, I guess if you respected them, you wouldn't harm them. Because
Mhm.
I was thinking like, oh, can you respect the fact that I want to harm you? You know, like the one of those like mental puzzles.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But respect negates harm, because if you
Mhm.
respect them, you wouldn't harm them.
Right.
Yeah. So we do need respect. I think it's like how yoga is the beginning of the journey, and then tantra or zen is the pinnacle
Right.
of the journey, because
Yeah.
it's like yeah, we tolerate you in the beginning, and then you achieve like liberation or moksha or like nirvana, enlightenment, and then you respect everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, but I think we're quickly approaching tolerance.
I think so.
I don't know if we're gonna approach respect.
No, because I can see
soon.
that not happening, especially when there's a right and left.
Yeah,
How they're
exactly.
like
Yeah,
the cancel culture stuff.
but
That's not
totally.
respect.
But you
That's-
can still I think we're hitting a point of tolerance though.
Yeah.
Or I could see it like on the
It's-
horizon. It's like, oh, it's kind of getting there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the BLM thing that happened recently, and like now the world's eyes are on it, and like I'm just like it's crazy about the gay thing though. It's like, wow, I couldn't
Yeah,
believe, because he was such a genius. It's like, you let that person kill themselves, or you like ruined
Even he
their
basically,
genius.
yeah, he saved Britain.
Yeah,
you know,
he saved Britain.
He saved Britain.
Oh, actually, that's
which
why at the
is-
end, remember, like they declassified it,
Yeah.
and then they like gave him an award.
They gave
'cause he
him,
saved-
yeah, but he's already
he's already
passed
dead.
on,
So it's like, what are you
right?
gonna do, yo?
But it's about atoning to what they did, like acknowledging
Right.
that they did actually something wrong.
Right, which is sort of like reparations, which we'll get into later. Right? but so like if you think about it, how far is too far?
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
like what gets you a free pass? Like if they found out at the time, you think they'd still try him, or they'd pardon him?
Found out what do you mean?
Like
At
if they
the
found
time
out,
of-
like when they put him to jail,
yeah.
do you think they would have, or they house arrest, whatever, with the hormonal stuff?
Mhm.
Do you think if they found out that he saved Britain, would they have pardoned him?
May have. I don't know.
Right? Isn't that
I-
crazy too?
But
It's
it was
like-
all classified, and they weren't going to reveal that, and they
But-
didn't reveal
but-
that till 50 years later.
Totally, yeah. But you know why they... All right, so let's get into why it took 50 years to reveal it. Because they knew that people were going to die, and they let them die for the greater good. Quote unquote greater good. They even had that scene where the person's like, my brother is on that boat.
Yeah.
Like, please,
Right.
can we just tell that one boat?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we can't risk it. So you're literally putting individuals' lives second to like the good of the country,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Yeah.
But in the end, they do say like it's like he potentially saved like 12 million lives or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
But again, yeah, exactly. There
And
is
they
that,
said it would have taken 2 years longer, the war,
or 2 years. Yeah,
they
exactly.
theorize.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, you know, that's why it took 50 years. Because if you had...
You can't just reveal that
Yeah.
right, for the war.
and especially how many people would have been pissed.
Yeah.
So I think like it took 50 years because majority of them would have been dead. You know, like what, they're 70 years old, probably not paying attention to that.
Well, yeah, it's
you know?
like one of those things that it will become declassified, right?
Yeah, and then it makes you think what else is going on that we don't know about.
Right.
If that's going on, if they can like know and sacrifice people, what else is going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But then that leads to so many more things that are not actually true,
theories,
that are full crazy conspiracy stuff. But that's what happens.
Yeah.
There are truths to some conspiracies, but like not.
Yeah, totally. Oh, what was that thing with actually, before we get into the, because we're talking about conspiracies, so I listened to a podcast. Oh, do you have anything more about Alan Turing? Oh, yeah, I have one more thing about Alan Turing. So when he created the first computer, he had the foresight of writing the Turing test, which is, how do you know you're a human and not a robot? That is some crazy genius foresight. He had a giant computer that had no way to communicate with you. It was just a thing that would create like algorithm solutions. Right. But he knew if we push this further and further, there's going to be a point where we don't know if it's a human or a robot. Yeah. That is insane. And in sci-fi movies, they use it all the time.
Yeah, it's funny because that, like, when he was talking about that, it's like, oh wait, that is what they used in what was it, Blade Runner. That's why he was trying to detect what was it, AI or AI and what was human.
Yeah. They were doing like that, and also in Blade Runner 2, you haven't seen it yet, but when like later on in the future, they have robots hunting robots. Okay. And when they come back, they need to make sure that their code is still correct. So they use like a verbal game to make sure that the coding is still working. And they haven't suddenly grown consciousness or like morality, something like that. Right. Yeah. Again, Alan Turing, who would have known? But again, going back to it, I know him through AI. I had no idea about this, like science, like this,
or who he was.
Yeah, this like World War II and like his horrible ending to his life. It's like, wow. I even looked for like books after this, but only Imitation Game came out. I was looking to read something about him, but there's nothing really out there. Yeah.
He wrote that book, right? Imitation Game.
Oh, no. That was the name of the Turing test. He wrote a paper called The Imitation Game.
Explaining
the Turing test. Right. But the Imitation Game book was like about him. It was like written third person. Like a biographer wrote it. Okay. Which inspired the movie.
I see.
Yeah. So this actually goes like really well with this podcast that I just listened to. So there's this gang called the Banda de Maliana. They're an Italian gang. Okay. So you haven't watched Godfather 1, 2, or 3, right? All right. So basically, in 1, he's like,
no. What? Yeah, but I was shaking my head. Right? I didn't say no.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. True. Yeah. They couldn't see you shake your head. So basically, in number 1, his son wants out. So like he's a part of this gang. He wants out. He's supposed to be the genius. So he's trying to live a legit life. Doesn't work out. He becomes the new boss. Number 2. I think he escapes to Italy, something like that. I arguably it was the best one, but I just don't remember the full details of it. It was a great series, though. You should watch Godfather.
I only remember the one scene, the horse head.
Yeah, I do. That's the only thing I think that was number 1. But number 2 was about something like a gang, more like gang on gang violence. But then number 3 was the cool one because in number 3, because he became legitimate, he gave his money to the Vatican. Okay. So he was actually running the Vatican in the movie. And then I heard this podcast, and which is based on historical events. The mafia was running the Vatican. They were putting their money in, and they were like killing these people. They were doing like underage sex parties. They were doing like basically the bidding of the Pope.
Interesting.
But it's because like the Pope needed, like, it was like a two-way street. Like I think even some churches, they started laundering money out of the mafia, and then those people got killed. So, but what's crazy is like when I visited Rome, you would never guess. You'd just be like, oh yeah, it's like a old school. We even went to Naples, where they say it's the most like mafia ridden place, because we wanted to see it, right? So, or that, and it was the original home of the pizza. Like, the Napoleon style pizza.
Okay.
It's from Naples. So we want to try it. It's not that great, but anyways, regardless of that. So
subjective though.
yeah, true. Totally. Because they love it. But so when you're there, you're like, I would have never guessed that these like streets were run by like mob people. And you would also think, oh, maybe it was like hundreds and hundreds of years ago, right? Mm-hmm. But it was like 1983 when this stuff was going on.
Yeah.
5 years before I was born, and then it's still probably going on. They just don't even know about it. And what the guy said in the podcast was, laws are laws at our level, but when you get to the level where people are making the laws, there are no laws.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you think about it, that's why the Alan Turing thing happened. That's why they sacrificed those people. Because if you look at it, it's like, no, the moral obligation is to tell them so you could save it.
Yeah.
But they were like, no, it's our business, because countries are run like businesses. So we're going to let this one slide. We got to let these people die for the greater good of the business.
It was interesting because it was like only MI6 knew.
Yeah.
So they were the one who were creating the cover stories of what happened here. Or like, why did they die? Or like, what was the issue? Like something like that. Like, not
same with the guy knew, the prime minister.
Yeah, I would assume that would have been there.
But anyway, so continue. Yeah.
But it was really kept between the MI6 and stuff.
Yeah,
they were the ones who had to create the cover story.
Yeah. So, bro, so what is happening at the highest levels? You just don't know, because money makes things go round. Money and the fact that you want your country to be the strongest. Yeah. Well, like another one is like, why did Japan side with the Nazis? Probably because like economically it worked in their favor. Yeah. Always comes down to like business and power and control and money.
How to betterment your own country.
Yeah, because that's also what Hitler did, right? He was like looking after World War II or World War One. He's like, I need to resurrect Germany because it was like in the gutter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like
they didn't even go to war right away. They allowed him to take over so many places.
Exactly.
And it was just when it went too far, I guess, when he went into France and stuff like that. Like, okay.
Yeah. Right. Totally.
We got to go back to war again.
Yeah. Totally.
Because it wasn't that long after the first one, right?
Or maybe they were thinking like, this guy could get too much power. Like, it's okay to let
a little bit go.
It's like, yeah, you can. But when you start getting to the level of like being the big dog, you need to shut the big dog. You need to shut the growing dog down.
Yeah. Well, like they were getting hit. Britain was getting hit.
Yeah, with bombs and stuff. Yeah.
So, I mean, London. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. There's this. Have you ever heard of the anime Afro Samurai?
Yeah.
So, in it, the basic premise is there's a number 1, number 2 headband. So the number 1 headband can only be challenged by the number 2 headband, but anybody can challenge for the number 2 spot. So it's almost like USA's number 1, and then they're like, okay, number 2, if we know we can keep beating you, we'll let you be number 2.
Yeah.
But then as soon as we see somebody who's going to take the number 2 spot that might end up beating us, we got to take them out really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that. It's like, okay, Hitler, you can do whatever you want. Oh, wait, no, you're getting too much power. We need to stop you.
Yeah.
So the Roman gang thing in 1983, like around that time, they were like hanging them. Well, officially it was called a suicide, but everyone in Rome like laughed at it because they're like, no, we know that they hung this person on the bridge. He like hung him off a bridge,
right,
like, to send a message.
Right.
But they classified it as suicide. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is so crazy. All right, so let's get into 12 Years a Slave.
Well, there was Hidden Figures.
Oh, you want to go into Hidden Figures and finally talk about?
Yeah, because there's
all right,
you can see the difference between Hidden Figures and 12 Years a Slave. What has happened even within that many years too, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, well, we'll talk about Hidden Figures. So Hidden Figures basically is about these three black women who really changed the game for NASA, and they like fought for their civil rights, even though they had rights, but like they weren't the best of rights.
It wasn't the same.
It wasn't equality.
There was still segregation.
Yeah, totally. And like, but it's cool to see how, with the common goal of getting to space to beat the Russians,
Yeah,
the director or whatever, that person who was running the math department, he took out segregation because she had to like use colored bathrooms, but they were like a half a mile away. So he'd get pissed, like, why are you taking 40 minutes every single day? And then she blew up and was like, because there's no colored bathrooms here. And then the next scene, he took out the colored bathroom sign. He's like, use whatever bathroom you want.
Yeah.
You know,
there was a lot of cool scenes in that.
That was a very good like empowerment scene.
Yeah, there was a lot of powerful, impactful scenes.
Yeah.
Like with the judge, when the lady was talking to the judge and convincing him.
Yeah, because she couldn't get her degree to become an engineer, and then her boss was a German.
Maybe.
And he was just saying like, she's like, oh, it'll never happen. He's like, I'm an ex-German or something like that, and like,
Jew maybe, right?
Maybe ex-Jew, and he's like, and I never expected to be here at NASA at this high level. You can do it if you want to. And then she was inspired, and then she ended up becoming an engineer. So she was the first engineer to work at NASA, like black engineer.
Yeah, female black engineer.
Female black, double.
Yeah.
And she had to bring her case to court because they wouldn't let her study at a white high school.
Yeah.
At night.
Yeah.
Yeah, when she convinced him. You gotta watch that scene. It was super powerful, but yeah, so there were so many moments of like breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. Like even that time, there was still a lot of breakthrough to still happen or happening. But even though there was segregation or technically no more slavery, but you can see
it was still lesser then.
Yeah.
And it was crazy too,
but it was still bad. It was still bad because of the segregation.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
But it was interesting too to see how like some of them were fighting for the cause, and then other people were like, "We're not in that mess." Yeah. Like the one lady who became supervisor, she was like to her kids, like, "We're not a part of that." Like, because they were protesting for like rights. And she's like, "No, we need to stay in our lane." You know.
Right, like, but like she was more focused on using your brains to
not brawn to like. We didn't
like,
watch it yet, but like Black Judas, we gotta watch that. Like that's gonna be what that's about, like the Black Panther movement and all that.
Right.
But yeah, so like going back to it, it's crazy to think again how far we've come from that time, because that was NASA.
Yeah.
You know, this was like 1969, so that was, I guess that would be 50 years ago now.
Yeah, I think it was like early 60s. I don't think it was 69, was it?
That's when they went to the moon. Oh, that's when they went to the moon, right?
This was before going to the moon.
Yeah. So anyways, 50 years ago. Yeah. Crazy. Yeah.
Not that long after Alan Turing. I think, 20 years later or something like that.
Yeah.
From that time. So it was like what was happening in America.
Right. Yeah, totally. And it's like, I really respect NASA after that movie, because I was like, oh, you guys are very progressive, you know, but I never knew. But I mean, it makes sense though. Of course you'd be progressive because you're focused on science. You need the science to work or else people are going to die. Yeah. So like, I liked how the astronauts were like, it doesn't matter what color you are. Like that one dude, the main astronaut, he was like shaking hands with the colored people and they were like shocked. But it's like, no, like you guys are going to bring me into space. I need to respect you guys, you know? And then even when they were doing the math incorrectly in that one, like, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, they like didn't need her anymore, the main character.
Yeah, they were using IBM machines.
Yeah, to run the math. And then the IBM machine messed up. So the astronaut said, go ask the lady who was in the meeting to confirm the numbers. If she says it's good, I'll trust her. And it was like, look at that. He respected a colored woman enough to put aside his potential biases and like trust her. You know? So I like that progression. That was good. Yeah.
It was a good movie to show that. And then we went even further back
to 12 Years a Slave. Now we're 12 Years a Slave. The craziest. This is the most not graphic.
I would say like the most honest truth of what happened.
Yeah. And I've been waiting so long. Like Tara, when I told her you and I were watching, she's like, "Oh, I've been asking you for years to watch that." And I was like, because I've always said no. I knew it was dark, you know, but like when you watch this movie, it's like, wow. The things that they went through.
Yes.
And what's even crazier is the fact that so basic premise, he's a performer living in New York. He's a free man.
Yeah.
Then he gets an invitation.
This is in the late 1800s?
So there was no slavery in the North, but there was slavery in the South.
Yeah.
So he gets a gig to perform in Washington, D.C. He performs. The people that he performed with drug him, sell him to re-slavers. So basically what they do is they take free colored people and then they tell them like you're not free, you're not that person that you thought you were. They give them a whole new name. They just put them back into slavery in the South.
Right. I was just reading that thing. So maybe it happened like they were passing laws like, okay, no more exportation or importation of slaves. So what happened probably was they were
taking them from the North and
free ones,
and
kidnapping them and putting them
into the South.
Bring them to the South to be.
So when the law, which is the premise of the movie,
right? But
when the law, like, why would that law be enacted? But it's probably to stop that kind of stuff from happening. Yeah, that makes sense.
No. I mean, when I meant by import and exportation was from the seas, like bringing them from Africa. Yeah, that's what I mean. So by that law, because preventing that.
Yeah, in case they did that. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So like, because they took them from the North, came by boat, and were like, oh, these are slaves, you know. Like that would stop that from happening.
But only within. No, you can only have the slaves within the country.
Yeah.
If it was still running, they have to be already slaves.
Yeah, you could only use the resources that were already there. You couldn't bring in new resources.
Yeah,
it's like it's pretty negative to call them resources, but that's how they treated them. Like farmers and stuff. Like so many like slaves. Yeah. So he goes and then he's like surviving basically. Like he can't tell anyone that he's a slave. He tried that in the beginning. It didn't work. And then he was free and then it didn't work. And then he asked this one dude who was an overseer, an ex-overseer who is now working in the fields with them to like mail a letter. And that guy said he would do it, but then betrayed him. And then it wasn't until he met Brad Pitt's character where he was from Canada. And then he told him like, oh, this happened to me. Can you just mail this letter? And then Brad Pitt's character was like, I'll do it. But he's like, I'm scared. And then it ended shortly after that his friends from the North came down to the plantation and then picked him up and were like, you're going back. Yeah. That was so scary because it's like.
So, yeah, what I liked, what they were showing was like in the beginning when he got caught, it was more like, a lot of them just accepted that they've been captured and put back in slavery when he's like, I don't want to survive. I want to live.
Yeah.
Surviving is just.
Because the other people were like, this is what happens to us.
Yeah.
You know, and then like, he didn't want to give up his past life.
Yeah.
You know, they tried to break his mind. You know, you are not that person you once were. You were this guy who, like, the name. Even at the end when they're like, what's your name? And then he, like, told them his real name. It's like, what's the name of your wife? Like, they're trying to prove that it was him.
Yeah.
And then he was, like, answering all the questions. Imagine if his mind had been brainwashed and he didn't remember any of those things. That's so freaking scary.
Well, I think that was that's, like, there were so many scenes of, like, oh, maybe I can get out of this. Like, he tried like escaping. It was like, oh wait, you just saw someone getting hanged. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
And then there were so many ups and downs, and he doesn't. I think like at this point,
So
even
many attempts to break his spirit.
right, and even like after telling Brad Pitt, there was a scene of just focused on his face, and he was just like, I think he was like thinking like, is this gonna happen or not gonna happen? Like,
is this real? Is it?
Was it a dream? Like,
like there was a lot of moments where they would just show, like, one of the craziest scenes is when they hung him, they tied him up. Basically, they were gonna hang him, and then they told him not to kill him because he's like, you don't own that slave.
It's a property. You can't
just kill him.
Right.
So then they're like, wait for the master to come get him.
Mm-hmm.
So he stayed there all day, hung up, basically like about to die.
Yeah, on his tippy toes. Basically.
Yeah, to not get choked out.
Yeah.
And then all the other slaves went about their day as if it was nothing.
Yeah.
That was such a powerful scene because they held that one frame for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that is what would have happened. It was like the juxtaposition of suffering and people ignoring the suffering.
Yeah.
Because that's just how it was. They were just like, oh, again, lashings again, you know?
I mean, you can't really help. Even if you help, it's going to be,
Yeah.
You're going to get lashes. You're going to get other punishments.
Right. Or that one scene where, like, he was forced to whip his own friend.
Right.
And it was like, wow, you see no humans.
Mm-hmm.
There's no humanity here.
Right. And religion was used.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. Going back to it, is like they kept using things from the Bible in order. But this is also what's crazy to me. So they were using things in the Bible to justify slavery and justify whippings.
Yeah.
But then the black people also used the Bible.
Yeah.
So it was like, what are we doing here? Why are we both using the same? We're arguing over verses.
Right.
We're both using it for our own means, you know?
But the thing is, a lot of them, this is like, hundreds of years in slavery, they've lost their original stories, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
They got forced into this.
They got colonized.
Religion.
Yeah.
But they're using that same thing and bringing out the good stuff.
Yeah.
And using that for inspiration. That's what they were doing.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, well, good stuff is very subjective. But yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And then it was crazy, Brad Pitt's character, when he was like, I don't follow the laws of man. It was like universal law, human on human. Like, there's no difference between him and me. Like, he saw it, you know?
Yeah.
But then what's crazy, it gets into, like, animals, right? So, like, you think, well, one thing that's crazy to me is, like, how in the Bible, too, it's like animals were created, like, not like humans. Everything on this earth is for us. That's what the Garden of Eden is, right? They're for humans. So that's also why back in, like, Edison's time, they would electrocute animals. Like, they would use the animal as like a tester.
Lab rat?
Like a lab rat, yeah. Oh, we still use lab rats.
We still use lab rats, I was going to say.
But
I mean, it's not just rats. They do test on monkeys.
But they used to do it on, like, dogs, right? And, like, they would hang them up. And then there's this one person that was trying to, I remember this in a book. They were like, there is no spirit in an animal, unlike a human. So they skinned the animal alive and left it there. And they're like, where's the spirit? You know, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, have you never had a dog, bro?
Like, it's funny because we're coming from our perspective. It's like, what sort of thinking? Like, you can hear the pain.
Yeah.
When they're alive and you're cutting them up like that or skinning them.
Just like when you're whipping the slave.
Yeah.
You could hear it.
I don't understand how you can't relate to it. Like,
but,
you know what I mean?
But remember the overseer when he was like, you either drown the truth or you lose your humanity as you're whipping them because you know it's not right.
Right.
So your humanity either dies or you have to, like, drink your illusions and be like, this is not real. Crazy. You know what's crazy too? Overseer, KRS-One, he has that song, the police song. But anyways, he goes like officer, he goes overseer, over, and then he keeps going, and then it turns to officer, you know? And I was like, oh, that's so true. Like, the overseers of today are the officers. they're like enacting the duty of the owner, which is the White House or the government.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, so that was gnarly. So like when you see that, and then you go today with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, it's like, I get it.
They still feel the same way. I mean, what they see with the treatments from the cops.
Yeah. Yes. They're like, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
You're still treating me bad.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that's the crazy part. When we were doing the whole BLM thing here, totally BLM here, I totally support it as well. But it's weird how like the hype train can happen, like with like Canada. It's like we don't have that history of slavery. Although I'm not saying that there's no racism here. Obviously there is. But it's like when you watch 12 Years a Slave and you realize that that was in America's history and they fought for that, like that's why the North and the South, right? And the thing you're saying about Lincoln, he would have survived. If he didn't die, slavery probably would have gone.
That was the fight for the Civil War was about that.
Yeah. So it's like, bro, that's ingrained in you guys. And you talk about not being racist now.
Yeah.
How can you not be racist? Right? Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, like that's why like specifically having that Confederate flag, that was for the South who had slaves who wanted to continue that way of living.
Because it was a way of life and it was a great means of making money. Like you're basically abolishing an entire industry by outlawing slaves. Because slaves really did. Remember, you're saying like the reason why the reparations is because they built
America.
They did. You know, all the cotton fields and stuff. That was them. You know, they built that dude's house. Yeah. You know,
there was something I don't remember the phrase of. They were promised something.
40 acres.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's 40 acres. Yeah.
Okay, so
like rap songs.
Yeah, I never got it. So that's why this whole reparations is
interesting.
Is speaked about because you promised something that you didn't hold up to.
Yeah, where's my 40 acres of land? Yeah. Well, they probably just promised and like, we can't actually give you this because where would the 40 acres go?
I know, but that's why it makes sense where there's an argument for reparations.
No, totally. Yeah, I agree. Especially looking at that, it's like, why would you not be in support of like BLM and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. So I was watching Bonsai Pop. Shout out to Bonsai Pop. And I was watching the Afro Samurai episode. And at the end of it, the last 8 to 5 minutes was about the Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. And I cut up a little piece of it and like promoted it. But it's weird. Like he gets it. I'm sure he like looked into it. All the things he was saying, I was like, yeah, this is true. One of the things he said was like, I agree with it, but it's a little dark. So he was saying that because police officers work for the government and the government lets these people go, like if you like kill a black person, like you'll walk, which is actually at the end of the freaking 12 Years a Slave movie, how his captors walked free. Like he brought them to trial and they're like, oh, sorry, they get to walk.
But also like you can't trial a white person.
Yeah, exactly.
A white trial,
right? So that stuff's still happening today. The cops that killed that black dude, they got let go multiple times, not just George Floyd, but it's like multiple times in the past. So what he's saying is like, all cops are bad cops because they work for a government that's bad. And I was like, I see that argument. You know, he's like, unless the government changes through us by voting, then they'll be bad cops.
But that's the only way, though. That's the only way.
Totally.
Because it comes down to voting again.
Exactly.
And we don't vote.
Well, like they don't vote. Like we're
right. Yeah. It's not like they're like maybe 60% to 40 to 60% vote, and it's like that's why
if you want change, you got to vote.
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of young people don't vote.
Totally. Yeah. And
so like there's so many things to it. Like it really comes down to voting.
That's what he's saying at the very end. He's like, we have to vote. Like the police are bad because the government's bad, but we are the government because we vote them in.
Exactly.
So we need to vote to actually make real change.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, which is great because this was before the election, and then at the election, you know, Biden won. So I was like, all right, cool. Now we're gonna go back to some sort of like normalcy, But
well, they don't want necessarily normalcy. They do want to change. They want to see something.
Like, we're not going towards racism anymore.
Right.
I mean, like, we're heading in a positive direction.
Right.
Whereas like Trump is definitely of that mind of like, no, this is my property.
No, no, like,
He's
well,
12
yeah,
years
like,
slave.
I'm just trying to rephrase that because it's like normalcy means like before Trump,
Before Trump, yeah, that's what I
but
meant.
also,
Yeah, right,
but
right,
also
right.
before Trump, the issue was still there. They want a change.
Well, I see your point. Yeah, right. So you're right, totally.
Yeah.
They want better than normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the crazy part was, I knew if I put that up, I was like, I'm probably going to invite some negativity because of this. But I was like, I totally believe in it, so I'm going to put it up. So put it up, got 2 comments about how he was wrong. And I was like, you guys didn't watch anything. You didn't look at anything.
Right.
You know? They're like, oh, this is false was one of the, I just block them. That's what I do. If
Yeah.
if I'm just like, you're just too ignorant for this, I'm just going to block you. You know? But so anyways, so that's what's going on now. So you post this one thing about positivity, positive change, you get like this backlash about people who are like, no, this is wrong. You're wrong in your statement of, but it's like, what are you talking about? Your entire history is big. Actually, he made a really good point in that last 8 minutes. And this is the best point. He's like, white people, when they talk about like benefiting, like, you know, like white people benefit from the system. He's like, we had a 300-year head start to make networks, to make businesses, to make friends, to make families. And then we brought black people in, like they're at a disadvantage. We've had 300 years to set everything up for ourselves. And it's funny because you and I are both not white, and coming into it, it's like, as I'm getting older, I'm seeing, it is slanted in their favor.
Yeah, of course. Because it's not just that. That is very true within the country, but it's also within like
not like Canada too. I mean,
no, I know. I'm saying like what other countries did to other countries, like by colonizing them. Yeah. By taking all the stuff from India or like China or like other parts in Africa. You're saying like, oh, why are they not so well off? No, you took everything from us.
Crazy. Totally. Yeah. Like. Yeah. Of course you had a head start. Of course you were this dominant superpower that all of us, quote unquote, colored people are like against, you know? It was weird too, because like even during the whole BLM thing, and I was like, oh, should I tell the story? I did a little pause, like, I'll tell the story, whatever. I just won't like attribute it to anything. But like, I remember during the whole BLM thing, and I was like, I wrote a post about it for this thing that I was working for. Right. But that thing that I was working for was like headed by all these white people. And they were like, one, I wasn't even the head of the company. So it was kind of weird that I was writing it. When I wrote it, then this one person who was like pro BLM was like, oh, like we shouldn't put this statement out because it seems like an empty promise. Because I made a statement about like, we understand, blah, blah, blah. But she was saying you didn't attach any change to it. So then she brought it up to the one in charge, the head of the company. And they were like, what Ervil has written is a power of like, I echo these sentiments, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the first thing I thought was like, why did you write it then? Like, if you really do echo these sentiments, why am I doing this? You know? It's like, we play this shell game of care. Yeah. You know? But that thing that Wob said that like became a Young Yoda quote is like, our greatest illusion is we care. We think we care more than we do. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm all for BLM. What'd you do for it? You know, like, yeah. I'll put a black square. It's like, okay, cool.
That doesn't really do anything, but yeah.
You know? And then I remember, then we had these like subsequent meetings, and it was like, this is what should be changed. Blah, blah, blah. It was like a anti-white power meeting, right? They were talking about like their white privilege and stuff. And I was there. I remember me and the other colored people were like, what are you guys like? Well, I'm not white. I don't understand what you're talking about. Like what white privilege? I came into this, and in that meeting, I was illuminated, and I even said it. And again, you know, looking back, it's like, yeah, nobody thinks outside of the box, and 2, people are threatened when you think outside the box. I was like, I don't actually fully grasp this. Like, what white privilege are we talking about here? Because like, I grew up from an immigrant family. I didn't really have these things set up, blah, blah, blah. And they were just like taken aback because they're like, because they all knew that they came from old money. So it was like the 300 years that they talked about was like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's real. But when you're face to face with it, it's like, how do we address the situation? You're telling like a colored person to think about his white privilege, and I'm like, but I'm not white. Like, where is my like hundreds of years of ancestry that built something for me? You know? Yeah.
Right.
I'm getting more and more jaded as we get older, and like you really like read into things and like look at things. It's like, Craig, I get it. I get what everyone's been saying. Like all these voices, these minority voices about like how things are unfair. And growing up, you're like, because I was pretty well off, you know, like we lived in the suburbs. We were totally fine. We didn't get any of that stuff. But then now when you look at the play, so when we heard that, I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like, it's totally nice here in the suburbs. But when you like leave, you like see, oh no, this is how people lived, you know? Thoughts?
Well, it's a mixed thing about, for me, it's more like we are coming to a white nation in a sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Right. Of course they would be well off because if they were here for a longer time.
Oh wait, sorry. You just triggered something in my mind when you said we're coming to a white nation. I remember so many. This is one of the things that freaked everyone out in that meeting as well. So, I can't believe I said this. Now look back at it. But my dad would always be like, my mom kind of, but it was more my dad because he was experiencing, now that I'm older, like we're talking about racism, like, oh man, I'm experiencing a lot of racism, Dad. He's like, yeah, what? I experienced that too. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I was telling you as a kid, right? Like, oh, watch out. Like you have to work double as hard as a regular person, right? So like, I remember in that meeting, I was like, oh, my parents were right. And like, you guys do have legs. Cause they were like talking about they're like, they were exercising their white guilt, you know? And like, when they started saying that, I like broke in and I was like, oh, my parents were right. You guys, that is slanted in their favor. And they were just like baffled because they're like, we just admitted our white guilt, and this Asian dude's telling us like, yeah, I experienced that actually. I see how you guys are getting away with more things than I am. But I was like, but I didn't get it when I was a kid. I was just like rambling like this, you know, just like.
But it's also in a lot of cultures too. It's like, it's like, oh, you have a white boyfriend. It's like already a higher
yeah, that's true.
Status.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. Like,
yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Still, yeah,
it's still there.
Like you see, like the stereotype of like when I lived in Hong Kong, it was like Guai Lo. So it's like no, not Guai Lo. That's from Fast and Furious. So the G, Gringo maybe. Maybe
Gringo is white, yeah.
So they have this name for these like old white dudes who would like hook up with, like start dating or like connect with like these Asian women. And it was like, that was the thing there. It was like the Asian women would prey on the white dude because it's like, yeah, status.
Yeah.
And like a way out, you know? Yeah, it's crazy. I think racism is totally real, but you know.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're all racist. Because I was just like,
it's not. I don't want to blame only white people for racism.
When I said that, I heard it in my head. But we're all racist. It's
right.
Like, yeah, true. But it's like, I think what we're getting at here is, I'm realizing we're not in an even playing field in terms of like white privilege.
Right, in a white nation.
But yeah, that's true. It's true. Because like, if I was in the Philippines, this would be a totally different story. Because I would be like, what white people?
That's right.
Or like, if you were in India, what white people? It's all Indians, mostly. You know, obviously globalization, but we are in their territory. So don't even get started on Native Americans because they were here first. You know what I mean? Like,
they were here first, and yes, but everything, when I look at it, like how they justified themselves, at least the Europeans, to like, oh, like we came to North America, but we're
providing technology, goods, services,
and
civilizing them.
Somehow they convince themselves they don't own property. We're we're gonna make it where that we you know what I mean, like sell property and that kind of thing. Like what?
When they came, the Native Americans are like they're like, oh, do you have claim to this land? And the Native Americans are like, well, nobody has claim to the land. The land owns the land.
See that they would use that line, and then they're like, oh, okay, so then we can own the land.
We're gonna own it. We're gonna buy this land.
Yeah.
But it's like, but how are you gonna introduce your rules into a thing that has no rules? Because like the Native Americans were living off the land.
Yeah.
They're in harmony with it. It was like nobody owns the earth.
Right. But what they did was, I think, clever side of that was using the other tribes against other tribes.
Oh right, yeah.
This is the way they helped take over.
Same with the Aztecs. They did that. The Spanish used the Aztecs to fight other Aztecs.
Right. And like even now, like Native Americans, that's the one thing that Canada hasn't fixed. There's a lot of problems for Native Americans here.
Totally, yeah.
So like, yeah.
But it's weird, just logically looking at it. If you understand the history, you totally trump, no pun intended, every single person that's arguing for like colonialism. Like, you know, people like, oh, Native Americans don't own this land, Canadians do. And it's like, I see their point though. Like if we're actually talking about who came here first, and like just because they don't want to claim land, and if they were like, I mean
the thing is like they don't have any right in saying go back to your country, because if that was the case, then you should go back to Europe. Yeah,
true. That's very true as well. That's very true as well. It's crazy because like like let's say the Native Americans, they came and they were like, hey, who owns this land? The Native Americans were like, we do. We have a land paper right. Then they would have just killed them. They'd have been like, okay, we're gonna go to war with you guys then. It's either we're going to take it or we're gonna beat you over the head with a stick and take it anyways. Right. That's what we do as a species. And if you don't look into it, how will you progress past it? You know? But it's true though, because it's like it was saying, like if you don't look into it, how are you gonna progress past it? Because I didn't know these things, and then after us looking into research of like history and like watching these movies, it's like, can't you just see the like obvious right and wrong here? Yeah, you know. But then the question is like, what's the answer to it? I don't know, because we're always progressing. We just gotta change it now.
It is a continuous process. So I think that's one of those, because I want to watch this thing. I think I have it on Netflix. Something about the 14th Amendment or something, right? And the way it was written isn't written specifically for any race.
Okay.
It was written just citizens.
Yeah. Okay.
So what is considered a citizen, right? So like, it doesn't have anything related to race. It's so the way that the founding fathers or like whatever was written is like it goes for everybody.
Right. Okay. Like
that's how they can use the same thing and pass these laws. Like how.
Oh yeah, because it's not slanted in favor of someone else. Yeah. But irregardless, they still have 300 years.
Right, I understand that. Like, yes, of course. But that is something that needs to be acknowledged. That is.
Nobody acknowledges that. Yeah. You know, and they look at like, oh, how come these like immigrants, they can't get it? It's like, you've had so many generations of trying to figure out. Although now that I think about it, they could slowly become the minority, because with all of the immigration that's happening. Actually, I said that.
Well, that is the fear that they have, but especially the South.
I said that during that meeting again. It's like when we were talking about, you know, Black Lives Matter and stuff. I was like, I see a change coming where, because of globalization and immigration, white people are going to become the minority in North America soon enough. You know, they're just going to be pushed out because we're either going to marry them.
You join us?
Yeah. Like, right? Because we're either just going to like merge with them, and then there's going to be no more white race, or they're just going to like find a new home or something. I don't know.
No, they'll just be part of the rest of the thing. Like,
yeah. Because how many people are in Canada?
35 million.
Okay, so how many people are in America?
350 million.
Okay, so 35 to 350 million. We have a lot of room in Canada to still build up our population. As immigration increases for like Chinese and like Black and like et cetera, it's like we're going to kind of just eradicate the color thing Like the Dave Chappelle skit where like in the future we're all just going to be like one kind of brown because like everyone's going to intermingle to the point that you're just going to have like
right
one race kind of thing in like 1,000 years
or a mixed race.
You're not going to have like a singular, because so many mixed
that's the thing, like
people.
I would like just get to the point where then just anyone is Canadian.
There's no purity anymore. There's no individual ethnicity anymore. Slowly, you know, they're going to become mixed children.
Right.
Crazy to think about. But that's the world of respect and tolerance. That's like close to where we are now.
Right.
Yeah. I was just saying one more thing about this. I forget. Do you have any other things about 12 Years Slave?
It's something that I think, well, I saw it back when it was first released, but it's something that, in a way, to not forget what happened.
It's sort of like Schindler's List. Yeah. It's like the Schindler's List.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know. Yeah. We all, it's crazy. Growing up, we all watched Schindler's List. We had to watch it in history class, right?
Yeah.
In high school, are they all watching friggin' 12 Years a Slave?
Now? I don't know.
They should.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, this is what I was thinking about. Two things. So, one, they contributed so much to culture. They make things cool, man. Like, really looking at it, basketball was like, meh. And then, like, you got Michael Jordan, and all of a sudden, oh, it's so cool. It's dominated by, like, you know, black people. And then, like, boxing, music, hip-hop, all that stuff. It's like, even anime.
No, I know, but I don't want to just give it to them only for entertainment. There are great, again, we saw Hidden Figures.
Right,
great.
Right, but I'm talking about on a superficial level. It's like, we renounce them, but we love them. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
They should be held up high for like their achievements. You know, it's like, look, you changed the entire thing.
Yeah.
But all right, so the other thing in relation to entertainment, you remember when, so like the whole idea of soul music, you know, why does it put something in your body? Like if you listen to soul R&B, basically, when you listen to it, or like blues, which is rhythm and blues, R&B, but like all that like soul music, Jimi Hendrix, he changed like the guitar style. He added soul. Where did that come from? The slavery. Because like, remember that person died and they started singing that song, and then he didn't want to sing, and then he started singing, and then his emotion changed. Yeah. And even listening to it, it's like, it lifts your spirits in a time of sorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
they
there was a lot
soul.
Of that in that movie to show, even when they were picking cotton.
Yeah, they're singing the songs.
Singing, to get away from where they're at.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, man.
Yeah.
All right, so now to circle back everything. If you really think about it, the poison all started from this one religion.
Well, I mean,
you either rule by there's two ways to rule.
Yeah. Right.
Either by a stick or by belief.
Right, but they
got both.
I understand, but it was also the same religion that was used to bring, because Martin Luther.
But who introduced that religion to them?
No, I know.
That's what I'm saying.
But who used the same book to bring out,
right, to
remove slavery?
But who's still winning at the end of the day? Right? It's like, regardless of, it's like, great, you're using it's like that Harry Potter meme where it's like, how dare you use your spells, my own spells against me, Potter. That's what they're doing. Yeah. But it's like, at the end of the day, we also got a stick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Which I don't think anyone, but I knew it as a kid because I grew up Catholic, right? So if you look at it, it's like, that's funny. I just realized what a great thing freedom of speech is, that I can like blatantly say this and not go to jail. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we have the freedom to talk against anything you want.
Yeah.
Anyways, and realizing the ultimate superpower here, and like, yeah, I'm free to say it. I'll probably be blacklisted, but you know, whatever. So, but if you think about it, it's like I grew up Catholic, and even in that system, basic morality made me realize, like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we using this as a means? Like, I always bring up this story, but like one of the things that really jarred me and kicked me out of religion was meeting you, because like when we were in school, remember we were in school, and then they were like, anyone that is not Catholic is going to hell. Anyone that doesn't pray is going to hell. And then I automatically thought, so Vishal's going to hell? What the hell's going on? You know, I was like, but he's a nice guy. What? And then that's what really sparked it in my mind, is like, what's going on here? Why are we telling ourselves, like they were trying to indoctrinate me? That's also what Native Americans segregated schools, right? Mm-hmm. Indoctrinate them through history. Like, no, we came to this land as saviors. And then how many Native Americans are like, this is propaganda that you're spreading to my child. Mm-hmm. Because the truth is, you didn't come as saviors. Well, you thought you did because of religion, but, you know?
Right.
But, sorry, you're saying?
I don't remember.
Just about, like, yeah, it's like, why? Like, from a very young age, you can already see this mind virus entering to be like, you're evil, I'm good. Mm-hmm. From a very young age.
Right, I think, but then that would be...
Which is evil.
I understand that the idea is to convert so that they don't go to hell.
Right.
That you could have end up being like, I don't want him to go to hell, so I'm going to promote Catholicism.
And if you didn't, I'd be like, you're a Satanist. Right? Dude, think about it, right? It's crazy. So like if I come home that day after learning that lesson, and I was like, Vish, you got to convert to my religion. You're like, why? You're going to hell, man. I don't want you to go to hell. And you're like, no, I'm totally cool being Hindu. I'd be like, you're a Satan worker. You're like,
I don't know, when did I say to you, like, oh no, Jesus can be part of the thing too? Like,
I don't know, but I remember that too. Yeah. You're saying that like you're the like Hinduism just accepts everyone, but yeah, I remember that too.
So like that's why it would be hard. That's why it's hard, I think, for in India, why it didn't really go away, Hinduism, right? Because it's like, we'll just add it on.
You're right. You're an avatar. That's cool. You're like some reincarnation of Krishna. It's fine.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, it's like India or Hinduism is the Canada of all religions. Mm-hmm. We'll just take anyone. It's all good.
Yeah, because it's a complicated world.
Yeah.
So yours could be right too.
And it's funny, like I woke up like, because we were watching 12 Years a Slave last night and we finished it this morning before the podcast, but I woke up this morning and I was like, wow, I'm so lucky to be Canadian, because we hit the Brad Pitt scene and how you're saying like,
I mean, it's also Canadian, to be at this time. I mean, in this time as well. No, I'm saying like Canadian, now. But also like in this current timeline where we're at currently.
Yeah,
in 2021, like versus like.
Yeah, there's so many reasons why it's great to be Canadian. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We do tend to forget that and just focus only on the bad.
But that's what I mean.
We need to be,
we need
relative here.
If you go to like my Instagram account, there's that meme with Drake, and it's like things that put things into perspective and things that keep you shelved and entertained. It's like so many people are obsessed with, I guess maybe because they're young or they just don't have any experiences, but like even talking to people that I know who are like younger, it's like they don't get it.
It's a young thing though. I think like you're not
like,
really
have respect over like the past. Like you wouldn't be, you are lucky to be in this situation right now. You know what I mean? Mm. Like even the fact that we're in, like they're in Canada, like my cousins, it's like even the fact that they're in Canada, it's like that is a luxury. You would be like in a like developing country right now. Like what are you doing? When they take things for granted.
Right. But sometimes we forget.
But that's why you need things that put things into perspective. Yeah. Hence that meme, right? Because it's like, yeah. I really advocate watching this movie, but it's so freaking
real.
That's
what it is.
I feel like everyone should watch this movie, but like, I mean, I guess that's why they put it in theaters. Well, I also like how Brad Pitt also produced the movie, but he was also the good guy in the movie. That was cool. Like, Brad Pitt's awesome, King of Kings right there.
Is that white privilege you're giving him there for some reason?
Yeah, white respect. That's what I'm giving him right there.
All right, I understand.
For putting his money where his mouth is and getting a black director, right?
That's
to
true.
do a
Yeah,
black movie. Yeah.
that's true.
Okay, do you have anything else about thing?
No, I think
Sleep?
we had.
All right, so 2 quick things because I want to bring this up.
Okay.
Kant philosophy. I just finished a book on Kant, Immanuel Kant. This is nothing to do with slavery. It's like a lighter. We're
Is it
gonna end
Immanuel
on a lighter.
Kant or Kant?
Oh my God, you and Tara said the exact same thing. I was like, oh, I'm reading
That's why I was
Kant.
confused
And
when
then
you
she's
said
like,
it.
Kant? And I'm like, Kant, bro. No, I'm pretty sure it's Kant.
Someone said it.
For us, the hobby said Kant. That's where I heard of him. I had no idea who this guy was.
Okay. Well, it's just a name. We
All
have different ways of saying
K-A-N-T. So, I don't agree with everything that he said because like philosophy is pretty open-ended.
Yep.
Like, yeah, far-reaching.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I thought was genius, and it proves determinism, is this. How do you know what a ball is? If you've never seen, well, this is my own analogy. This is my own, like, he didn't give this example. But when I read the philosophy, I was like, oh, this is freaking genius. So how would you know what a ball is if you didn't know what a ball was?
Right.
You couldn't.
Yeah.
You would associate it. If I gave you a description, the best you could do is connect it to something you've already seen before. You've categorized it. So something that's round, something that bounces. That's basically what a ball is. So there is no such thing. They call it a priori knowledge. Yeah. So basically what it, you heard of?
I've heard that.
All right, so basically what it is anything you come up with only using your mind. So it's theoretical knowledge that you've come up with. So he argued that there's no such thing as a priori knowledge. You can't theoretically come up with something without a prior experience. Right. No new idea can come about without a past thing. Right. Right? So even in the ball thing, you would not know what a ball is unless you can associate it to something else you've seen in your past. Yeah. Some experience you've had. So what does that mean about free will? Because your new idea is spawned from an old thing. Yeah.
Well, you're just adding more evidence to what we already know.
Which is determinism. Yeah. Everything is determined. Yeah. Because even in that basic example of a ball, you needed a trigger to propel you forward into a new school of thought. But that's how our minds work. Yeah. So if that's how our minds work, if there's cause and effect is determinism. Yeah. So when people argue free will, it's like, what do you mean? Like, even this idea of you understanding what free will is comes from things that you had to have learned prior. So there was a origin to a thought. Yeah. Determinism. Right. Yeah. I thought that was cool. So that was my Kant idea. And final thing is Enlightened Beings. So I heard this in a Daniele Bolelli podcast, and I was like, I never heard enlightenment explained like this. So enlightenment is living your life with awareness of what you're doing. That's it. So if you are awake to why you do something, so it's like, we know so many people who live their life on autopilot, right? It's like, why'd you do that? I don't know. I just did it. Or like, oh, you should be doing this. Yeah, but, and then they'll make an excuse in their mind. There's a difference. There's one thing that I love about Wob, and I keep saying it, like I said it to him, but it sounds kind of like negative, but it's not negative. It's like, you know what you like, you know what you don't like, you do what you like. Yeah. That's living enlightened. And that's what everyone's searching for. Right? They're like, I want to be enlightened, especially in yoga, right? I want to be enlightened. I want to be enlightened. It's like, yeah, just do the work of understanding why you make the decisions you make. That's it. And then if you live your life that's what being awake is. Right. You're awake to your suffering. You're awake to other people's suffering. You're awake to what's going on in the world. That's what Buddha was. He was just awake, right? That's what a Buddha is. Yeah. Like, that's what the line means, like the awakened one. The awakened one. Yeah. So why is this the one pursuit that we're all searching for, that we think is a silver bullet that will cure all our problems? All it really does is make you realize you have problems. Right? It's so mind-blowing to me. I'm doing so much research on enlightenment, and then my argument is there's no one enlightenment. There's multiple enlightening moments, because you're always being enlightened to something. You didn't know something about yourself, blah, blah, blah. You can never be fully awakened because it's like you're awake to life, but you can never be fully awakened to everything because you're not omniscient. You're not a god.
No.
You know,
Right.
you'll always be illuminated to stuff, but you're illuminated to the fact that you can be illuminated. Like you're just aware of your situation. But why is this the ultimate spiritual pursuit when at the end of the day, you're still going to live your life? That's why there's a Zen cone.
Yeah.
There's a Zen cone that goes, chop wood, carry water. When you become enlightened, chop wood, carry water. Because there's nothing that's going to change except the fact that you realize, oh, I don't like this. I will do this because of this. And then you start looking weird because you start doing things that are against the norm. Remember that thing I was saying in the group chat about like the wedding?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like everyone's searching for this wedding thing. Why? Because everyone's been told to do this thing. We all have to do it. And then I was like, why am I going to do that?
I had that
Because you're awakened.
I had that moment like a long time ago.
Well, what?
Like
Just
you're just
awake.
seeing everybody's doing. Why are they all doing the same thing?
That's what enlightenment is.
That's what I saw like pretty at a young age. I would say like I was seeing everybody going to the GO train to go to work.
Like,
everybody's
why?
doing the same thing.
Yeah, we're just herd animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why when you say certain things that like, why is everyone a herd animal? Then everyone's like, oh, look at this disruptor over here. Like, oh, no, it's just being awake to the situation. You know?
Yeah.
Being a Buddha isn't hard. Living as a Buddha is hard. But being a Buddha is not, because so many people know what they should do. They just choose not to do it.
Right.
They just choose to go with the herd. But if you're actively choosing to do it, like Wob, that's why I bring up this example. Know what you like, know what you don't like, go after what you like. He's like, I like this, I don't like this. I will do what I like. That's it. So then you're not, so if you do want to catch the GO train, you're making an awakened choice. Yeah. So anyways, I just thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, that's how I want to end it. So just know what you like, know what you don't like, go after what you like. That's the final takeaway.
Cool.
All right. Daisy Fish.
Now we're all enlightened.
Yeah, just listen to this and you will become #woke. No, but it's easy to become a Buddha. It's hard to live like a Buddha.
Right.
Never forget that.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all those fun things, and check out our sponsors, Zenro Clothing Co., Portian Bakery, and Podbean. Take it easy, Fish.
Peace.